Your life is not being destroyed by one enormous failure. It is being stolen by the moment you decide to stop. The moment you tell yourself that tomorrow will be better. The moment one rejection convinces you that you are not capable. The moment you watch another person advance faster and begin questioning your own direction. The moment you allow a temporary emotion to cancel a purpose that once mattered to you. That is how a future disappears, not in one dramatic collapse, one excuse at a time, one delayed action at a time, one promise broken in private. Give me the next 20 minutes, and I will show you how to destroy the habit of stopping, not with empty motivation, not by pretending fear does not exist, not by forcing yourself to repeat a plan that clearly does not work. I am going to show you a method, first organized in 1937 around one mental force that transforms desire into achievement: persistence. But persistence is not what most people think. It is not blind effort. It is not working until you collapse. It is not refusing to change direction when the facts tell you that your strategy is failing. Persistence is the ability to remain loyal to a definite purpose while continuously improving the plan required to reach it. It is controlled thought transformed into controlled action. And there are 5 stages to building it. First, you must take command of your own thoughts. Then you must expose the hidden symptoms that make you quit. Then you must protect your mind from influences that weaken your decision. Then you must organize cooperation around your purpose. And finally, you must repeat the process until persistence stops feeling like effort and becomes habit. Most people never reach that final stage. They begin with desire. They create a plan. They feel confident for a few days. Then resistance appears, and their own mind turns against them. Before this ends, I will show you how to prevent that from happening. But understand this now. Your greatest obstacle is probably not your lack of talent. It is not your age. It is not the economy. It is not your competition. It is the conversation you have with yourself after something goes wrong. That conversation has ended more ambitions than failure ever could. Today, you take control of it. Every achievement begins twice. First, it is created as a thought. Then it is expressed through action. Before a business exists, somebody sees it mentally. Before a book is completed, somebody holds the central idea. Before a machine operates, somebody imagines its function. Before a life changes, a person first accepts the possibility that change can occur. But thought alone is not enough. Millions of people imagine a better future and remain exactly where they are. The thought must become definite. It must become emotionally important. It must become connected to a plan, and the plan must survive long enough to produce a result. That is where persistence enters. Desire starts the movement. Persistence keeps the movement alive. Without persistence, desire becomes daydreaming. Without persistence, knowledge remains unused. Without persistence, planning becomes paperwork. Without persistence, talent becomes a story about what you could have done. The first stage, therefore, is not harder work. It is control of thought. Your mind receives suggestions all day. The world tells you what to fear. Advertisements tell you what you lack. Social media tells you who is ahead. Other people tell you what is realistic. A failed attempt tells you that continuing may be foolish. An old memory tells you that the past will repeat itself. And if you do not consciously choose the dominant thought in your mind, the strongest outside influence will choose it for you. You may believe that every thought inside your head belongs to you, but many of those thoughts were placed there through repetition. Someone told you that you were not disciplined. Someone treated your ambition as unrealistic. Someone laughed when you failed. Someone taught you that security was more important than purpose. Perhaps you repeated the message so often that it stopped sounding like another person's opinion and began sounding like your own identity. I never finish anything. I always lose motivation. I am not confident. I am too late. I do not have the right connections. I am unlucky. I will begin when I feel ready. These sentences may sound like descriptions. They are actually instructions. When you repeatedly say that you never finish anything, your mind begins expecting abandonment. When you repeatedly say that you cannot handle pressure, pressure becomes a signal to escape. When you repeatedly say that you need motivation before acting, your mood becomes the commander of your future. Thought influences expectation. Expectation influences decision. Decision influences action. Action repeated becomes habit. This is why control of thought is not abstract philosophy. It is practical power. You do not need to control every thought that appears. That would be impossible. You need to control which thoughts receive authority. Fear may enter. It does not receive the final vote. Doubt may speak. It does not become prophecy. Fatigue may be present. It does not automatically cancel the plan. You can hear the negative suggestion without obeying it. That is self-command. Do not wait for the mind to become completely quiet before taking action. Do not wait until you feel fearless. Do not wait until confidence arrives. Confidence usually grows after action has produced evidence. You act while uncertain. You survive the action. Your mind receives proof that uncertainty can be tolerated. That proof strengthens belief. Belief makes the next action easier. But the first step is often taken without emotional permission. It is taken because of decision. A decision is powerful because it ends unnecessary negotiation. Most people reopen important decisions every day. They decide to become disciplined, but the next morning they ask whether they truly feel like working. They decide to build something, but after one poor result, they question the entire purpose. They decide to change their life, but every moment of discomfort begins another internal debate. Should I continue? Is this still worth it? Perhaps I should wait. Perhaps I chose the wrong direction. Perhaps tomorrow will be easier. Every debate consumes energy. Eventually, the person becomes exhausted from discussing the work without completing the work. An unbreakable mind decides certain matters in advance. The plan may change. The strategy may improve. The timetable may be adjusted. But the purpose is not placed on trial every time the mood changes. You decide what you want. You decide why it matters. You decide what you are willing to give in return. Then you allow that decision to guide action. Your feelings may report their condition. They do not rewrite the command. This is the first test. Are you directing your mind toward a definite purpose, or are fear, habit, environment, and circumstance directing it for you? Do not answer with words. Your schedule has already answered. Your habits have answered. Your unfinished plans have answered. Your attention has answered. Look at what dominates your day. That is what currently controls your mind. If your purpose matters only when you remember it. But distraction is present every hour. Distraction will win. If you think about the goal for 5 minutes but spend the rest of the day absorbed in comparison, anxiety, and random information, the weaker influences will become stronger than the purpose. Your definite purpose must remain mentally present. Write it clearly. Read it regularly. Connect it to emotion. Picture the result. Picture the price of remaining where you are. Then connect the thought to immediate action. Thought without action becomes fantasy. Action without thought becomes scattered effort. Controlled thought joined with organized action creates direction. Now you must identify the symptoms that reveal weak persistence, because quitting rarely introduces itself honestly. It does not always say, "I am giving up." It often disguises itself as logic. The first symptom is an unclear purpose. You say you want success. But what does success mean? More money? How much? By what date? Through what form of value? You say you want freedom. What would freedom allow you to do that you cannot do now? You say you want a stronger mind. What behavior would prove that strength tomorrow morning? A vague desire cannot produce definite persistence. When the destination is unclear, every road becomes a distraction. You move in one direction for a few days, then another opportunity appears, then another idea, then another trend. You keep changing direction, not because you are adaptable, but because you never selected a destination strongly enough to reject alternatives. Definiteness of purpose gives persistence something to protect. The second symptom is a weak desire. Many people do not truly desire the result. They merely prefer it. They would like success if it arrives without inconvenience. They would like discipline if it does not require sacrifice. They would like financial independence if it does not require learning, uncertainty, rejection, or years of organized effort. A preference disappears when the price becomes visible. A strong desire becomes more focused when the price becomes visible. Ask yourself what your goal is worth to you. What are you willing to exchange for it? Time, comfort, entertainment, the need for constant approval, the desire to appear competent while you are still learning? Every worthy goal has a price. Persistence becomes easier when the exchange has already been accepted. The third symptom is procrastination supported by reasonable excuses. You do not say, "I am afraid to begin." You say, "I am waiting for the right moment." You do not say, "I fear criticism." You say, "I want the work to be perfect." You do not say, "I lack confidence." You say, "I need to research more." Preparation can be intelligent, but preparation becomes a trap when it protects you from reality. You watch tutorials instead of practicing. You redesign the plan instead of testing it. You buy equipment instead of developing skill. You consume information because information feels safer than exposure. At some point, action must begin before certainty is complete. Action reveals facts that thought cannot reveal. The fourth symptom is indecision. You examine every possible risk. You imagine every possible failure. You wait for perfect certainty, but certainty rarely arrives before movement. While you hesitate, time makes the decision for you. The opportunity passes, the energy fades, another person acts, and because you never chose firmly, persistence has nothing to defend. A decision does not mean ignoring evidence. It means gathering the best information available, choosing a direction, and allowing enough consistent action for reality to provide meaningful feedback. You cannot judge a long-term plan from 3 days of effort. You cannot judge a business from one offer. You cannot judge a channel from 3 videos. You cannot judge a new identity from 1 imperfect week. The fifth symptom is dependence on explanations. When results are poor, you immediately explain why: the economy, the algorithm, your family, your age, your lack of money, your location, your competition. Some explanations may be completely true, but an accurate explanation does not create a result. You can be right about every disadvantage and remain permanently trapped by being right. Persistence asks a more useful question. Given the conditions that exist, what can I do next? What can I learn? What can I improve? Who can help? What part of the plan can be changed? Where is action still possible? The sixth symptom is the habit of accepting defeat at the first appearance of resistance. One rejection becomes proof. One mistake becomes identity. One bad month becomes a prediction of the future. The mind takes one event and turns it into a universal law. This always happens. Nothing works for me. I knew I could not do it, but one result describes one attempt under one set of conditions. It is not qualified to judge your entire future. A temporary defeat may be carrying instruction. The question is whether you remain long enough to receive it. A man once became convinced that gold existed beneath a piece of land. He obtained equipment and began drilling. After some effort, signs of gold appeared. Then the vein seemed to disappear. He continued for a time, found nothing, became discouraged, and sold the machinery. The buyer did something the first man had not done. He sought specialized knowledge. An engineer examined the land and discovered that the original drilling had stopped only a few feet from the continuation of the gold. The failure was not caused by a complete lack of effort. It was caused by the failure to combine persistence with accurate knowledge. The lesson is not that every failed goal is secretly 3 feet from success. Some plans must end. Some ideas are based on false assumptions. Some conditions genuinely change. The lesson is that you should never confuse the failure of a plan with the failure of the purpose. Before you quit, obtain accurate knowledge. Examine the facts. Ask what failed. Ask why. Ask whether the method should change. Do not keep drilling blindly. Call the engineer. The 7th symptom is the absence of organized planning. You have enthusiasm, but no structure. You act when inspiration appears. You stop when the day becomes difficult. You do not know the next action. You do not measure progress. You do not anticipate obstacles. You do not decide what minimum work will be completed during weak periods. Then you blame yourself for lacking discipline. Persistence requires a plan, not a perfect plan, a definite plan that can be placed into action, examined, and improved. The 8th symptom is the search for shortcuts. You want the reward faster than the necessary ability can be developed. You see somebody else's result and search for the hidden trick. You change strategy every week because a new method promises speed. You confuse novelty with progress, but some results require accumulation. Trust accumulates, skill accumulates, knowledge accumulates, an audience accumulates. Physical strength accumulates. Financial stability accumulates. Persistence allows accumulation to occur. The 9th symptom is the fear of criticism. This destroys more purposes than many visible obstacles. You are not only afraid of failure, you are afraid of being seen failing. You imagine the comment, the laughter, the person who says, "I told you so," the family member who questions your judgment, the stranger who sees your early work before your ability has matured. So you delay, you hide, you reduce the goal, you remain socially safe and privately dissatisfied. The fear of criticism makes people abandon their own judgment and borrow the limitations of the crowd. Not every criticism should be ignored. Useful criticism contains information. Destructive criticism contains only discouragement. You must learn to separate them. One improves the plan. The other attacks the possibility. Take the information. Reject the poison. This is where most people surrender, not because they lack time, money, or ability. They surrender because criticism, discouragement, and temporary defeat enter the mind and begin sounding like truth. Now you must learn the 3rd stage, protection from negative influence. Your environment is always making suggestions. A friend who mocks ambition is making a suggestion. A family member who sees danger in every opportunity is making a suggestion. A social feed that shows reward without effort is making a suggestion. A group that treats discipline as obsession is making a suggestion. A stranger who writes one negative comment is making a suggestion. Your own repeated excuse is also a suggestion. The mind becomes influenced through repetition. What you repeatedly hear begins to feel familiar. What feels familiar begins to feel believable. What feels believable begins to influence action. This is why mental protection is necessary. It does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean refusing all advice. It does not mean pretending reality is positive when the evidence is negative. It means controlling what receives repeated access to your mind. You are responsible for the mental atmosphere in which your purpose must survive. Some conversations need to be shortened. Some opinions should not be requested. Some accounts need to be unfollowed. Some habits of comparison need to be interrupted. Some information should not enter your mind before your purpose has been remembered. Do not begin every morning by giving strangers control of your attention. Do not open your mind to fear, outrage, comparison, and distraction before you have chosen your own direction. Begin with your purpose. Read it. Review the plan. Identify the essential action. Then enter the noise. That is modern mental protection. The strongest influence is not always the loudest voice outside you. Sometimes it is the repeated voice within you. You make one mistake and say, "I always ruin everything." You delay one task and say, "I have no discipline." You become afraid and say, "I am weak." You fail once and say, "I am a failure." Be careful with permanent identities created from temporary behavior. You acted without discipline. That does not mean discipline cannot be developed. You experienced weakness. That does not mean weakness is your identity. An attempt failed. That does not transform you into failure. Conditions can change. Behavior can change. Knowledge can increase. Plans can improve. But change becomes difficult when you use language that turns a condition into a permanent definition. Replace condemnation with responsibility. Condemnation says, "This is what I am, so nothing can change." Responsibility says, "This is where I am, and my next action matters." Responsibility creates movement. This is where deliberate autosuggestion becomes useful, not empty statements, not magical promises, not pretending you already possess results that have not been earned. Use statements connected to action. I can complete the next step. I can learn what I do not know. I can adjust without quitting. I can experience fear without obeying it. I can return today. Then prove the statement. Say, "I complete what I begin," and finish the next task. Say, "My purpose is stronger than my mood," and work through the first period of resistance. Say, "I return quickly," and restart now, instead of waiting for Monday. The statement gives direction. The action provides evidence. Direction joined with evidence creates belief. Belief strengthens future action. This is how you replace an old mental command. Not by arguing with it forever, by building stronger evidence. You must also protect yourself during temporary defeat. A disappointed mind is highly receptive to discouragement. After failure, every negative opinion sounds intelligent. This proves you should stop. You have already wasted enough time. This was never realistic. Do not make permanent decisions while standing inside temporary emotional pain. Return to facts. What specifically failed? Why? What knowledge is missing? Which assumption was wrong? What remains valid? What action is still available? Separate examination from self-attack. The purpose of analysis is to improve the plan, not destroy the person carrying it. There will also be people who care about you but do not understand your purpose. Their concern may be sincere. Their fear may still be limiting. You do not need to hate them. You do not need to prove yourself through argument. Listen for useful facts. Reject conclusions built only from fear. Not every voice deserves an equal vote. Advice should be judged by knowledge, experience, evidence, and intention. Volume does not create truth. Familiarity does not create authority. The crowd usually sees what already exists. Purpose sees what can be built. The crowd judges the seed. Purpose sees the potential forest. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone. Your responsibility is to protect the mental condition required to continue acting intelligently. But protection alone is not enough. A person who tries to carry every plan, every doubt, every problem, and every decision alone will eventually exhaust the mind. This brings us to organized cooperation. One final element turns individual determination into organized power. Cooperation. A definite purpose becomes stronger when supported by minds that contribute knowledge, perspective, accountability, and encouragement. This does not mean depending on other people to create your motivation. It means recognizing that great achievement often requires more ability than one person possesses. One person may hold the vision, another may understand finance, another may understand production, another may understand sales. Another may recognize a weakness in the plan that the creator is too emotionally involved to see. Specialized knowledge becomes powerful when it is organized around a definite purpose. The person drilling for gold did not need more blind effort. He needed an engineer. That is the difference between isolated persistence and organized persistence. Isolated persistence says, I must solve everything alone. Organized persistence says, I remain responsible for the purpose, but I will obtain the knowledge required to improve the plan. Cooperation begins with humility. Pride says you should already know. Purpose says you should learn. Pride avoids asking for help because it fears looking inexperienced. Purpose asks the question because the result matters more than appearance. Pride protects the original plan. Purpose protects the destination. Choose purpose. Look at the people surrounding your goal. Do they strengthen the plan? Do they provide knowledge? Do they challenge excuses? Do they tell you the truth? Do they respect the possibility even when they criticize the method? You do not need people who agree with everything you say. Constant praise creates blindness. You need people who can improve your thinking without weakening your desire. A valuable ally may tell you that the plan is poor, but they do not tell you that you are incapable of developing a better one. They separate the strategy from your identity. They bring facts, they bring experience, they bring questions. They help temporary defeat become instruction instead of isolation. Organized cooperation also creates accountability. When you work alone, it is easy to renegotiate your standards privately. Nobody sees the delay. Nobody knows the promise was broken. Nobody notices that the plan has disappeared. The right alliance brings your purpose into an environment where action becomes visible, not through shame, through responsibility. You declare the goal. You agree upon the next action. You report the result. You examine the obstacle. You adjust. You continue. This protects persistence during periods when your own emotional perspective becomes unreliable. There will be days when the obstacle appears larger than it is. Another mind can restore proportion. There will be days when pride refuses to admit that the plan is failing. Another mind can reveal the evidence. There will be days when discouragement makes you forget your progress. Another person can remind you what has already been built. This is why cooperation should be organized, not accidental. Do not merely surround yourself with people. Build relationships around clear purpose. What is the objective? What knowledge is needed? Who possesses it? What role does each person play? How will decisions be made? How will conflict be handled? How will action be measured? Harmony does not mean the absence of disagreement. It means disagreement remains directed toward strengthening the purpose. The moment the relationship becomes controlled by ego, resentment, or competition, cooperation loses power. A strong alliance combines different minds without allowing those differences to destroy the shared objective. Modern culture celebrates the image of the solitary genius, but visible achievement often hides invisible cooperation. Businesses are built by teams. Inventions are refined by specialists. Books are improved by editors. Careers are strengthened by mentors. Athletes develop through coaches. Creators learn through audiences, collaborators, and honest feedback. You remain responsible for your purpose. You do not need to remain alone. The 4 practical movements are now visible. A definite purpose supported by strong desire, a definite plan placed into continuous action, a mind protected against destructive influence, an alliance that strengthens the purpose and improves the plan. These movements are not separate motivational ideas. They work together. Purpose creates direction. Desire provides energy. Planning converts energy into action. Mental protection prevents discouragement from taking control. Cooperation supplies knowledge and strength. Repeated action transforms the entire system into habit. This final stage changes everything. Because willpower is unreliable when it must begin the same battle every day. Every morning you debate, should I work? Should I train? Should I continue? Should I begin again? Should I wait until I feel stronger? The decision consumes energy before the action begins. Habit removes unnecessary negotiation. At first, persistence requires conscious effort. You must direct the mind. You must reject the excuse. You must protect attention. You must return to the plan. But every repetition makes the pathway more familiar. Eventually, beginning feels normal. Returning feels normal. Reviewing failure feels normal. Adjusting the plan feels normal. Continuing without applause feels normal. Persistence stops being an event. It becomes identity. Habit is persistence made automatic, and habit is created through repeated action, not dramatic intention. One enormous day of effort cannot replace 30 ordinary days of continuity. Intensity can start the process. Consistency transforms you. This is why you need a minimum action. Do not build a plan that only works when energy is high. Build one that survives the difficult day. On your strongest day, you may work for hours. On your weakest day, preserve the connection. Write one paragraph. Make one call, complete one focused session, read one page, practice one skill, perform one action that tells your mind the purpose is still alive. The size of the action may change. The direction remains. This destroys the all-or-nothing habit. The weak mind says, if I cannot do everything today, there is no value in doing anything. The persistent mind says, I may not control the size of today's victory, but I control whether I remain connected to the purpose. Continuity protects identity. One brick does not resemble a building, but the building cannot exist without individual bricks placed repeatedly. Do not insult today's brick because you cannot yet see the cathedral. Place it, then return tomorrow. There will be days when you fail to act. Persistence does not require a perfect record. It requires a reliable return. This distinction can save years of your life. Most people are not destroyed by one mistake. They are destroyed by the shame that follows it. They miss one workout and abandon the month. They waste one morning and surrender the day. They break one promise and use it as evidence that they cannot change. Do not turn a broken rhythm into a broken relationship with your purpose. Return quickly. The shorter the distance between the fall and the return, the stronger your identity becomes. You teach yourself, I do not disappear after difficulty. I do not wait for a perfect date. I do not need a new year, a new month, or a new Monday. I can begin again with the next action. That is self-reliance built through evidence. You trust yourself because you have watched yourself return. You have watched yourself keep promises. You have watched yourself correct plans. You have watched yourself survive criticism. You have watched yourself move while uncertain. This evidence becomes stronger than fear. The next obstacle still creates discomfort, but it no longer creates the same conclusion. Before, difficulty meant stop. Now, difficulty means examine. Before, failure meant identity. Now, failure means information. Before, criticism meant retreat. Now, criticism means separate useful knowledge from destructive opinion. Before, delay meant nothing was happening. Now, delay means measure, learn, and continue. This is the transformation. An unbreakable mindset is not a mind that never feels fear. It is a mind that no longer gives fear the authority to make final decisions. It is not a mind that never experiences doubt. It is a mind that acts according to purpose while doubt is present. It is not a mind that refuses to change. It is a mind that changes the method without abandoning the mission. It is not a mind that works without rest. It is a mind that rests without converting rest into surrender. You stop searching for a road without resistance. You begin developing the ability to respond to resistance. The purpose is not to make life weak. The purpose is to make the traveler strong. You do not need every condition to become favorable. You need a definite purpose strong enough to survive unfavorable conditions. You do not need endless motivation. You need a plan that continues when motivation disappears. You do not need universal approval. You need protection from opinions that carry no useful knowledge. You do not need to possess every skill. You need the humility to organize cooperation with people who possess what the purpose requires. You do not need perfect discipline immediately. You need enough repeated action for discipline to become habit. From this moment forward, when resistance appears, do not immediately ask whether you should quit. Ask what the resistance is revealing. Does the plan require accurate knowledge? Does the purpose need greater clarity? Is the desire too weak? Are you acting without structure? Are negative influences controlling your interpretation? Are you trying to carry a goal alone that requires cooperation? Is the action too large to survive difficult days? The obstacle may be showing you which support is missing. Correct the support. Do not automatically cancel the purpose. When failure appears, examine it. When criticism arrives, filter it. When fear speaks, hear it without obeying it. When the plan breaks, rebuild it. When energy falls, perform the minimum action. When you fall, return quickly. When you feel alone, strengthen the alliance. When the purpose becomes distant, bring it back into thought. Write it. Read it. Visualize the result. Remember the reason. Remember the cost of remaining unchanged. Then act. Do not spend your life waiting to feel ready. Readiness grows through contact with the work. You become capable by practicing capability. You become confident by surviving uncertainty. You become persistent by performing persistent actions. Identity follows evidence. Every action is evidence. Every completed promise is evidence. Every intelligent adjustment is evidence. Every return is evidence. Every time you continue without applause is evidence. These actions are votes for the person you are becoming. At first, the old identity has the majority, the identity that delays, the identity that fears criticism, the identity that begins and disappears, the identity that changes direction whenever discomfort appears. But every persistent action casts a new vote. Eventually, the balance changes. You no longer say, "I am trying not to quit." You become the person who returns. You become the person who studies defeat. You become the person who seeks accurate knowledge. You become the person who protects attention. You become the person who organizes cooperation. You become the person who keeps the purpose and improves the plan. Then confidence becomes quiet. You no longer need to announce what you will do. You do it. You no longer need to convince everyone that the goal is possible. You work. You no longer fight every critic. You take what is useful and continue. You no longer depend on excitement. You act from habit. This confidence is difficult to break because it is not built on praise, luck, mood, or one successful result. It is built on the memory of every moment when you could have stopped and chose to continue intelligently. There will still be temporary defeats. There will still be plans that fail. There will still be people who misunderstand you. There will still be days when your mind becomes tired, but these events will no longer have the same authority. You have created a stronger pattern. You know how to direct thought. You know how to recognize weak persistence. You know how to protect the mind. You know how to seek cooperation. You know how to return until the action becomes habit. That knowledge becomes permanent capital. A position can be taken from you. A proposal can be rejected. A business can fail. A market can change. A door can close. But the ability to think definitely, learn accurately, cooperate intelligently, and persist through temporary defeat remains within you. You can build again. You can adapt again. You can return again. This is why persistence has no substitute. Talent cannot replace it. Education cannot replace it. Excitement cannot replace it. A perfect beginning cannot replace it. Desire must be joined with organized, sustained, intelligent action. So make the decision now. Define the purpose. Strengthen the desire. Create the plan. Begin before certainty is complete. Protect the mind. Choose the alliance. Study the defeat. Correct the method. Repeat the action. Return until persistence becomes habit. You do not need to conquer the entire future tonight. You need to stop surrendering the next action. That is where your power lives, not in yesterday, not in the opinion of strangers, not in the failure of the first plan, not in the speed of another person's progress. Your power lives in the next action performed in agreement with a definite purpose. Take it, then take another. Let the result take time. Let criticism arrive. Let the first plan expose its weakness. Let the road demand growth. You are no longer depending on perfect conditions. You have direction. You have desire. You have the ability to learn. You have the ability to protect your mind. You have the ability to cooperate. You have the ability to return. That makes you difficult to defeat. You may be delayed, but delay will not define you. You may be rejected, but rejection will not direct you. You may become tired, but tired does not mean finished. You may feel fear, but fear does not receive the final vote. Temporary defeat may change your plan. It may demand knowledge. It may expose weakness. It may force growth, but it does not have the authority to cancel your purpose. You may bend. You may pause. You may adjust. You may fall, but you will return again and again and again until control of thought becomes controlled action, until controlled action becomes persistence, until persistence becomes habit, until habit becomes character, and until the obstacle that was supposed to stop you becomes the very resistance that built your unbreakable mind.